My name's John Tamori. I have been making maple syrup since I was just a kid. My brothers Tony, Ben, and Gene have been involved with the same thing from the very beginning as well. We actually have a picture at home that my mother took out recently of my older brother Gene, who's actually 10 years older than me. And he has me as a 2 or 3-year-old on his knee, boiling with a really old school evaporator at my parents' property. That's where it all began, really. We were collecting sap in buckets off about between 50 to 150 trees for years, and it was always just a hobby for us. So as we grew older, we kind of expanded it a little bit there, and then we bought the family farm. When we bought the family farm, we got to know it a little bit more, and we realized that there's a tremendous opportunity to make maple syrup on a commercial level. So during evenings and weekends and things like that, we'd get into the woods, we'd run the lines and kind of do it on the side while we had our other full-time jobs. So it kind of just grew and other opportunities arose, and eventually I quit my job, started working full-time with a business, growing both the sales side of things, the marketing and production. So from there, Ben joined and Gene joined, and now Tony's the last one who's not working full-time, but we hope to have him on board in the near future as well. As a family business, we try to operate in a collegial manner. We're all co-founders of the business, but we have assigned roles according to what our skills are. I have been the president of the business now, and each of my other brothers are responsible for another important aspect of each business. And over the years, those roles have kind of expanded, have grown, and we fit into each role according to our natural skill sets. We try to make decisions together though, so even though we have these roles, all the major decisions, we sit down as a group, we get together about once a week, and we work through these things together. Certainly we all have our strengths and weaknesses, but we're able to support each other in the areas where we fail. It's always worked fairly well together, and certainly we have our little fights now and then, but we can get over it pretty quickly. So a funny story about our business. We had, at the very beginning, when we were working part-time making maple syrup and keeping our full-time jobs, there was one night where Tony and I were collecting sap from one of our other forests. We had this really old 90s truck that we used to haul the sap with, and it was in pretty rough shape. So we were going out there, and the tanks were overflowing, and we jumped in the truck, went to the site, filled the truck up, and of course at this point it was 3 o'clock in the morning, we were completely exhausted, and we failed to consider how much fuel was in the vehicle. And of course, being an old vehicle with some little idiosyncrasies, the fuel gauge wasn't working properly. So what we did was we were driving the sap back home, and sure enough, we ran out of fuel right at Highway 48 and Sanford Road at the traffic light. Now if you know that traffic light, it actually has a sensor on it and triggered the light to turn green. So we were parked at this light for about an hour, and the light kept changing, so we caused all this disruption to traffic at 3 o'clock in the morning. But nonetheless, we were stuck there for about 2 hours. My brother Ben was working in Manitoba at the time, so in order to get ourselves out of this, we called Ben, woke him up, and we tried to figure out how to get this vehicle primed again, because it's a diesel truck. So Ben was doing all the research for us. He was looking into it, guiding us through it over the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. We called my dad. My dad went to the gas station, picked up a can of diesel, drove it out to us, and through a great struggle over the next 2 hours, we finally managed to get the truck going again, and then we were on our way. All of this at 5 o'clock in the morning, waking my dad up, waking my brother up. So it was quite an adventure that night for sure. So the reason why I love making maple syrup, there are a couple of reasons for that. The first thing is that my brothers and I grew up on a 12-acre wooded lot in Stouffville. We really appreciated just hanging out in nature, loving the trees, spending time in the forest, things like that. That was just always something that we did growing up. After that, once my father showed us how to make maple syrup, we got the bug. And as many other maple producers know, there is a bug. And once you start doing it, you just want to keep growing and growing and growing. So that was sort of an expansion of our love of the forest. Beyond that, I have always enjoyed doing entrepreneurial things. So to be able to work for ourselves is such a great joy for us, and it's all part of the passion. This is our enormous sugar shack, and you can see our big evaporator as well behind me. We boil sap from about 40,000 trees in this building. We truck it from a couple of different locations and process it all here. So we have a number of different products on our shelves, and we try to grow the different value-added items that we are stocking. Over the last couple of years, we've been dabbling in birch syrup in addition to our maple syrup. Birch syrup is made very similar to maple syrup, except that there's a way more boiling that needs to happen. So it's a lot more labor intensive. The flavor is very different. It's got more of a bitter, rooty, herbal flavor. So it's definitely more of an acquired taste, but it's very interesting. We sell that in a taster pack that actually samples all of the different grades of our maple syrup with our bourbon barrel aged maple syrup and the birch syrup. So it's a great way to get a sample of just about everything, and you can determine which maple syrup you actually like the best and actually line them up, and that's a neat experiment to do just to understand the flavors of our maple syrup. So first and foremost, you can find our maple syrup from our retail store here. We also sell our product online, but there are a number of different retailers who carry our syrup. In Uxbridge, Vince's has our product. We sell to a number of Foodlands and Sobeys locations. There are a whole bunch of small boutique retailers who carry our product throughout the GTA as well. As a small growing business, we try to work with a number of others in the local community. We develop partnerships by allowing them to use our maple syrup in their products. We stock it on our shelves and they stock it on their shelves. A couple examples of this are Banjo Cidery, Slabtown Cidery, Grattan's Greatest Barbecue Sauces, DeBar's Chocolate, Elpida Roastery, who make coffee, and Hurt Berry Farms, just to name a few. Another really interesting one is Sapsucker. They take our maple sap, carbonate it, put it in a can, and add some fruit flavorings, and that makes a really nice, refreshing product. These are just to name a few, and we like to establish these relationships and grow with other local small businesses as the time passes. The best way to come and experience our maple syrup is to actually come to our Maple Syrup Festival. Every March and April, it'll run for a number of weeks throughout those months. You can come for a walk in the forest, you can see us make maple syrup. We'll be giving tours both of the sugar shack and in the woods, and you'll get to try a delicious maple taffy while you're here. On top of that, we have our Pancake House open, where we offer a pancake breakfast with locally made sausages that are just fantastic. Those are coming from Willow Tree Farm. All of the information can be found, like I said, on our website, but also you can see advertisements and more information about the festival on our social media. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook. I wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming to visit our farm, for sampling our products, for coming to our Maple Syrup Festival, and for sharing in our great passion of making maple syrup.